So it's Friday night. My man tells me he's going to go out with the boys for a little while. So, of course, a couple hours later, I check his location on the OnStar, which, by the way, he knows absolutely nothing about. And he's at this particular address that's unfamiliar to me. And I'm like, you know what? The last few times he's gone out, he's been going to this address. And I'm now really curious. I want to know who the fuck lives there. I'm like, I need to stalk his ass. So I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, I got to call my sister to come over here. She'll watch the kids while they're sleeping. I'll take her car, go to this apartment, look through the window and see what's going on. And imagine I look through the window and he's sitting there with some fucking bitch having drinks on the couch, laughing, joking, having fun. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I need to kick the door down and beat both their asses. And then I'm like, you know what? Maybe you're overreacting a little bit. Let's take a moment and give him a call, see if he actually answers the phone. So I give him a call. The first ring, he doesn't answer. My heart's palpitating. The second ring, I'm like, I got to call my sister right now. And just as I'm about to hang up, he answers the phone. He's like, hey, babe, what's up? And I'm like, hey, babe, what you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm at the bar, we used to go to before you had the baby. And I'm like, oh, tell everybody I said what's up. And he's like, hey, the wifey said what's up. And I'm like, shit, I almost killed someone innocent.
Story time on how my brother and I got caught, doing the dirty. And also, we are married now. So before we start, I just wanted to say, we don't have the same dad. We just have the same mom. And we honestly don't see anything wrong about it. But let's start. So like I said, he's only my half brother. And we were really, really close all the time. He's my older brother. And he was always very protective. We didn't really fall in love until 3 years ago. And also, we are from Europe. So the day we got caught, doing the dirty, we were home alone. And like I said, we were always close. So that day we were just hanging out, watching a movie on the couch. And he started to play around, flicking my ear. And then he pulled my hair and we just started playing around. And I accidentally tripped and my nose was bleeding. He was really scared. So he said, let's go take care of that before our parents get home. Come back for part 2. Okay, so this is part 2 on how my brother and I got caught, doing the dirty. So like I said, he said, let's go take care of that before our parents get home because he was really, really scared. So we went up to the bathroom and, he was taking care of me. And all of a sudden, he kisses me. And yes, I kissed him back because I always had a little crush on him, but I didn't think it would get to that point. So we started kissing and then it started getting really hot. And yes, we did it like twice. But the second time my parents got home, we didn't hear them, but they did hear us. And my mom walked in and saw me butt naked on top of my brother. Long story short, he got sent away with his dad. Our parents were so upset and they couldn't even look at me. We got back in touch and we confessed our love for each other. We got married about 1.5 years ago. We moved to the United States to be away from our family. We live in Florida, ready to start our own family.
If someone offers you this, walk away. In 2016, a man was staying at his friend's cabin in the woods when he decided to go for an evening stroll. A little ways down the trail, he hears someone call out from behind his neighbor's house. He looks up and he sees this skinny guy pop out from behind the building who starts waving frantically at him to come over. Worried this guy could be in trouble, the man takes off running to assist. But when he gets close enough, the neighbor just offers him a fistful of Slim Jims and starts talking about how much he hates his wife. Sensing there was something wrong with this guy, he says no thank you to the Slim Jims and walks away. The next day, the man calls his friend who owned the cabin to ask him what the deal was with his weirdo neighbor. There was silence on the phone, and then his friend just says, I don't have any neighbors. The police are called, and it turns out his neighbor was really some lunatic who had recently killed his wife and had been hiding out in the abandoned cabin next door.
Story time about how I catfished all the popular boys in my grade and they found out about it. So a little background information. I was at a new school. I just started there probably like 4 months before this happened. And I was best friends with this one girl. We're going to call her Kate. And Kate had a crush on this guy. We're going to call him Alex. And he liked her back, but she wanted to see if he was loyal. Well, at least that's what it was supposed to be at first. But then he started to actually fall in love with this bitch. So then I started feeling bad and I told my friend that I just wanted to end it right there. And she was like, no, let's keep going. This is so funny. Mind you, this was the boy that she liked. So at that point, I was like, whatever. And then he asked to meet up at the mall. So then we took him on a whole goose chase around the whole mall. Like, we were like, oh, we're in this store. Never mind, we're in this one. And the only reason why we got away with it was because he thought he saw us in the one store. So then we broke up with him and we started talking to all the other popular boys. And on this fake account, we said that we went to a different school. Well, one of the kids at that school said that he never saw us there, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I catfished all the popular boys in my school and they found out about it. So like I said, the one kid said, "Oh, I never saw you at my school." So then I just blocked him, and thankfully that situation got left alone. Well, then after that, like I said, we started talking to all the other popular boys. We're gonna call this catfish Ashley. Well, at that point, everybody knew who Ashley was. Like, I would literally be sitting in class and all the girls would be talking about how much they hate Ashley, how Ashley's such a hoe. Like, all the girls despised her. Sorry, her. And they kind of had a reason to, because we broke up so many relationships and everything. Well, the one night I'm having a sleepover with my friends. Well, Kate asked if she could come to the sleepover as if it wasn't obvious that she could come. Just a quick reminder, Kate was the one who I started the account with. So I was joking around with her and I was like, "No, you can't come." So I wake up the next morning, right? And all the popular boys are blowing up my phone on my actual accounts, like for part 3. Part 3 about how I catfished all the popular boys in my school and they found out. So like I said, I wake up the next morning and thankfully it was a Sunday. And like I said, I woke up to text messages from all of Alex's friend group. And all these text messages were like, "Are you the one running the Ashley account? We saw screenshots of all the messages between you and Kate." So I texted Kate and I was like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, how does everybody know?" And she made some bullshit ass excuse saying that her brother took her phone and took pictures of all the conversations and sent them to everybody. Which obviously I knew that wasn't true. But after that I went into a whole depression because everybody just kept coming at me for this fake account. Whatever, it was literally me and her who created it. She was the one who wanted to make it to fucking catfish this guy that she liked. So I wasn't going to school for a few days and my guidance counselor literally had to come to my house. Pretty much drag me out of the fucking house and bring me to school. So I sat in the guidance counselor's office all day and then I had to move schools.
Welcome back to Reddit Stories. About 18 years ago, my wife and I wanted to adopt a child, and we were paired up with an Asian couple. We assured them the child would be loved, which was the truth because we instantly fell in love with our baby boy. After about 8 months, though, we started to feel twinges of guilt because our perfect Chinese son was going to be raised in this whitewashed household by two ding-dongs who were unable to provide him with any sort of connection to his cultural heritage or identity. There happened to be a large Chinese population in our city, though, so it seemed like a no-brainer for us to expose him as much as we could. We enrolled him in Mandarin classes, and we even developed a relationship of sort with a Chinese couple who became his adopted auntie and uncle. We even took family trips to China every couple of years. Flash forward to recently, he's now 17 years old and getting ready to go to college, so my wife and I are helping him fill out the financial aid form. Digging through my office for the needed paperwork, I came across his adoption papers, and it was only then that I saw it. Something so obvious, so painfully brick to the face obvious. Something that neither my wife nor I in the stupidity of our youth had registered. The names on the adoption paperwork were Park and Kim. Our son was Korean.
This is why you should never play hide and seek. A mom decided to play hide and seek with her 2 kids. The mom began counting, ready or not, here I come. She begins searching the downstairs kitchen because she knows that they hide there every single time. As she's walking to the kitchen, she starts saying, I wonder where they are. She looks under the table and sees they aren't there, which is kind of odd. She knew they were too scared to go into the basement alone, but she decided to check anyway. They weren't there either. She began to panic. The mom then says, "Jordan, Casey, come out now, mommy's not playing anymore." There was no answer. Panic really begins to set in. She decides to call 911 and reaches an operator. She tells the operator what's wrong and the operator sends an officer to her house. Once the officer arrives, he says, "Don't worry, we will find them." As she's sitting in the living room, she hears giggling and laughing and hears a closet door slam upstairs. She sprints upstairs and says, "Jordan, Casey, you worried me sick." She opened the closet door and nobody was there. While all of this is going on, she hears the doorbell ring. She runs downstairs and finds the officer holding Jordan and Casey. The officer says, "They were hiding in the shed out back." Then Jordan looks at mommy and says, "Why were you telling us to stay in the shed?"
Storytime on how I got kidnapped by my ex-boyfriend. And today I'm not going to do any lip syncing. And this is not my story. So I was 16 at the time, he was 19. He lived with his grandmother and I was only allowed to go over when she was at work or out of town. And we were very toxic. We were always on and off and he used to hit me. He used to throw me around, and guys, I'm 5'5". And he was literally a foot taller than me. So one day, we were broken up at the time. I called him and told him that I needed to get my stuff from his grandmother's house. I left my backpack and a few other things there because I was serious about breaking up with him. So he told me to go at 5 because at that time his grandmother wouldn't be there. She's a nurse, so she works doubles. Also, he told me he wanted to, talk to break up on a good note. And me being naive and young, I believed him. And I really needed my backpack for college. So I had my friend drop me off in my car. I'm running out of time, so come back for part 2. Okay, so part 2 on how I got kidnapped by my ex-boyfriend. So I told my friend to drop me off in my own car because I was afraid he would take my car keys like he's done before. So I got there and he was acting super strange. He started telling me that my clothes were upstairs, but he still ended up going upstairs and getting them. And I was actively texting someone and he got really mad, and that's when it all started. So he threw the backpack at me and took my phone away. I tried to open the door, but he overpowered me and he blocked the door. I yelled at him to let me go and he wouldn't. He demanded for me to talk with him. He grabbed me, threw me on the couch, demanding to talk to me. I said, about what? And he was asking me why I wanted to leave him. But I refused to talk because I was pissed off. And that angered him, and he said I wasn't gonna leave until I told him why I wanted to break up with him. So I told him some bum-ass story on how I wanted to focus on school. Come back for part 3. Part 3 on how I got kidnapped by my ex-boyfriend. And I told him that we could get back together after the semester was over. And I think he saw through my bullshit because he punched me. I tried to fight him back, but honestly, what could I do to him? So after that, I just sat there thinking of how I was gonna get out of this. And he turned on the TV and told me that I was with him for the night. And I knew his grandmother would not get off till 5 a.m. So I ended up waiting until he relaxed and I went to the bathroom. And on my way there, I noticed a cordless house phone. And he waited for me to get out of the bathroom and then escorted me to the living room. I asked him to make us some food, and then while he was doing that, he told me that if he couldn't have me, no one can. I ended up calling 911 and kept on talking to him about the kidnap, assuming the operator would be listening to me. Long story short, the cops came, they threw him on the floor. I ended up leaving, never pressed charges, blocked him from everywhere, and now I have 3 beautiful kids and I'm married, far away from him.
Story time on how I ruined my parents' marriage. It's literally their fault. And no, I don't really know the outcome or how they're coping or doing because I literally booked it out of my house and haven't really spoke to them since I got on a flight to Miami. So I'm in between apartments right now. I'm moving out of my college apartment into this new beautiful loft I just got outside of New York City with all my OnlyFans money. But in between the move, I obviously had to put my stuff somewhere and sleep somewhere. So I decided to stay at my parents' house. Awful idea because I have a very toxic household. My mom's a narcissist, my dad's just rich and was never in my life. He doesn't really talk to me. So my mom's screaming at me one morning, yada yada yada. Her typical bullshit. Then my fucking father decides to chime in. And I'm coming down off some dark web Adderall, so you know a bitch was stim raging. I was mad and I was gonna start some shit. Also, I'm rich now, I don't need their money, so I can. I'm on the sugar daddy dating site seeking arrangements. And I found my father on there. So second this man started yelling, I exposed it and showed it to my mother.
I am going to be telling you a scary childhood story. When I was 2 years old, my mom passed away. My dad wasn't in the picture, so I went to go live with my grandparents. My grandparents lived in a super old home that was built in the 1800s. I was a very imaginative child. So when I told my grandparents that I used to see people in the house, they just didn't believe me. There was one lady in particular that I would always see. She would sit at the end of my bed and watch me fall asleep. I wasn't scared of her because I thought she was an actual person. Plus, I was super little, so nothing even crossed my mind. At this point, I was like 4 or 5 years old. I remember her talking to me constantly. She even sang me the song Rockabye Baby to get me to go to bed one night. Every single day when I would get home, I could see her in my window. At that point, I thought she was just waiting for me. She just wanted to be my friend, right? But as I got older, things started to get really weird between me and her. She wasn't this nice lady anymore. Stay tuned for part 2. This is part 2 of the lady in my room who would sing me lullabies to get me to go to bed. No one else in my family could see her. She even told me that she was my mom. I really believed her. If you remember, my mom passed away when I was 2. So, it seemed pretty real that it was my mom. I didn't really remember what my mom's face looked like when she passed away. And this lady, could be my mom. She continued to sing me lullabies every single night when I would go to bed. She would always be waiting for me in the window when I would get home from school. But I figured out pretty quickly it wasn't my mom. My mom was a sweet, kind-hearted person. This spirit was evil. She would get mad at me every single time any of my friends would come over. She told me she could see my future and that I was going to go to hell after I died in a car accident. It scared me so much, but no one believed me. It got to the point where I never even wanted to go in the car because I thought I was gonna die. She convinced me I was evil. Stay tuned for part 3. This is part 3 of the lady who used to sing me lullabies to get me to go to bed. This spirit was evil, and she started to convince me that I was evil too.
She convinced me that I would go to hell because I was a horrible child, even though I wasn't. She convinced me that every single person in my life hated me. She even started to control my dreams, and I would wake up every single night screaming at the top of my lungs from a night terror, and she would be sitting at the end of my bed. This went on for years. When I turned 9, my grandpa passed away. And because it was a really big house, me and my grandma moved to a different house. And the evil spirit was just gone. I never saw her again. But was she really gone? When I was 15, I went to a psychic. The moment I walked into the room, she could feel a dark energy enter the room. She told me that someone was following me every single step I took. And when she said that, I knew exactly what she was talking about. After that, I went to a medium, and after many sessions with her, the dark presence was finally gone.
So this teacher asks her class of 6th graders a science question. She goes, "Students, what is a part of the body that when stimulated can grow 10 times its size?" Now, Susan in the back gets all pissed off as she stands up and says, "Teacher, that's a dirty question. You can't be asking questions like that. I'm going to have my parents tell the principal and we're going to get you fired." And the teacher ignores her student and says, "All right, class, what is a part of the body when stimulated that can grow 10 times in size?" Susan stands up in the back and looks around to her classmates and goes, "Guys, this is inappropriate. We need to get her fired." Teacher once again ignores and repeats the question when a student in the back stands up and says, the pupil?" The teacher goes, "Very good. As for you, Susan, I have 3 things. 1, you didn't do your homework. 2, you have a dirty mind. And 3, one day you are going to be severely disappointed."
This is said to be one of the creepiest kid shows that was ever made. This was a real show called 𝙬𝙗𝙧𝙚 that aired in 2000. And it was actually created by the same people who started Sesame Street. The idea is simple. Instead of puppets, it's just the hands talking with ping pong balls for the eyes. But there's just something very unsettling about the whole thing. People have said the way the characters talk is very disturbing, the way they move around. Them being puppets without actually being puppets is almost as if we're watching the skeleton of puppets perform. Or like a puppet that's just made out of flesh. And yes, this show wasn't made to actually be scary in any way, but it's on the list of the scariest kid shows ever because some kids really did have nightmares. Storytime to when my boyfriend cheated on me with his mom and this other girl. Also, this is not my story. Okay, so everything was normal for the first 5 to 6 months until he started acting very suspicious. And when I say he was very suspicious, I mean he was hiding his phone from me and he was always busy to hang out with me. But I didn't think anything of it, so, I moved on. Until one day we were in his room and he was taking a shower. I was sitting on his bed and then I heard a bing. And like any girl, I was curious, so I checked his phone. And it was his mom sending him a picture of her boob. Well, half of her boob showing. And as anyone would be, I was shocked. But I just thought it was the wrong person, so I forgot about it. Until we got into an argument and I brought it up. But he just acted confused and said that I was lying. So I said, "Then you wouldn't mind if I looked at your phone." Come back for part two. So I asked him if I could check his phone if I was really lying, and he just walked away. And he also just drove away. But later that night, we got into another argument and I asked him where he went. And it got really heated again, and this time he left for 2 days. And I was really worried when he got back, but then he smelled very weird. So I asked him where he was, and this time he answered, and you guys know what he said? At my sister's house having a threesome with her and another guy that apparently he was seeing for a couple weeks now. So then I thought maybe it wasn't his mom that sent him the picture of her boob. So I stormed out of the house and sent him a text message saying that we were done. So the next day I asked him who else he was sleeping with while he was with me, and he mentioned his mom's name, my sister's name, a guy named Mike, and someone from my job. And I currently do not communicate with him or my sister.